Hello and welcome to Grody and Unprofessional. My name is Justin McMenamy, and my mission is to share both profitable and painful leadership lessons I have acquired over a 20-year career as a misfit in corporate America. In this episode, we discuss why no one has ever heard of the Philippian Oval, the role of the dad joke within engineering design reviews, as well as a few of Aesop's lesser-known fables. Jim Weber, welcome back to Grody and Unprofessional. We're continuing our conversation here around what is innovation, what is not innovation, how do you foster it, how do you keep it from getting killed from the outside.
One unprofessional to another unprofessional. I'm glad to be here.
One of the things that we mentioned before, as your career was coming to an end, you did a survey asking people about innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking around. I'm looking for innovative people, and I'm trying to understand, what is innovation? Is it an adverb? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Is it a thing? To let you know, I've come to peace with what it is and how it is. But along the way in my journey, I decided I would do these brainstorming sessions. Why did I do brainstorming sessions? Because that was the in thing to do at the time. Everybody had a brainstorming session. Innovation was our only way out of this chasm that the whole world had fallen into. So this involves data that represents over 1,000 people.
Yeah. Maybe
2,000. I don't remember. So I asked them, depending on what the group was, and some of them are manufacturing, some of them were engineering, even HR, believe it or not. That was an interesting one, by the way. Anyway, so I start off by asking the question, how innovative are you? 1 to 11.
Now, I'm going to insert here. I think it's, 75% of people believe that they're above average in driving?
Yes.
I think that's what
I don't know.
I think I've heard this before. If you ask people if you're above average driver, it's like 75% say that they're above average driver. So I'm interested to hear how innovative people say that they are.
So I asked these people, I'm going to give you the aggregate after a couple thousand people in there. So I asked them, and you write it down. Okay, fine. And they get their number. Okay, that's great. Okay, I want you to, everybody hand it in and have the guy sum it up at the end. So it's anonymous. And so they did. And then the guy, thank you very much. Okay. And I usually had a big dial up in the front of the thing, click it up. And I'd look at the number and it goes, okay, put that up there. All right. Oh, by the way, before people would say, what does innovation mean? No, I just said, no, you get to make it up.
Right.
Because we could go down a rabbit warren that we would never get out of. No, you get to make up what innovation is. So the next question was, how innovative is your team, group that you work with, the people around you, all that sort of thing. And by then, of course, they'd already bought into, I get to make up what innovative is, okay? Numbers, sand it in, put the number up on the screen. So then we go to the next one. I said, okay, the challenges that you see ahead of you in your group or in your life or whatever it is, how innovative do you have to be to meet those?
Sure.
Okay, so here's what it wound up. I will not get the numbers exactly right, but the picture will fit in here. Okay, so remember it was 1 to 11. How innovative are you? Most people thought they were about a 5.5 or a 6.
Okay.
Next question was, how innovative are your compatriots? Well, they're like 3. How innovative is it required for you to meet the? It's like 9. Okay. It's a check mark.
Right.
You always think of the check mark. You now got it fixed in your brain. That's what the answers are. That's the answers from over 2,000 people. Now, did it happen in every group? No, but almost every group. It was remarkable, the similarity of their vision. Doesn't mean it's true.
What psychology feeds that check mark?
Fear is one of them. Fear that they can't solve that problem.
The future, whatever future problem.
And remember, a lot of these were engineers and manufacturing. Mm-hmm. I've already spoken a little bit to engineers, like I do what I do, this is what I did. And somebody comes in and says, okay, we need to do this incredible thing. And they're like, I don't know how to do that. I haven't even thought about that. I just do this and I go home and I play basketball and whatever. And so there's a certain self-pride that, well, I'm not stupid.
Sure.
Right? I'll hit the middle.
I'm middle. Yeah.
5.5, 6. I'm 6. Some people would say 7 and stuff like that. And then their view of their compatriots.
I work with a bunch of knuckle draggers is what I'm doing.
That was the part I didn't totally expect.
Right.
I could see the third one, sorta.
Yeah.
Okay, because if I did it myself, it wouldn't be a check mark like that. But it really was, and it was very visible.
If you filled it out, would it be a mountaintop?
No, it would be more like a flat line.
Okay.
It's like, hey, we can do this. And these guys,
They're good too.
They're good people. You know what? They need a little encouragement.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll suck the brain out. And you know what? I've been thrown up against the most impossible problems, and we figure our way out of this thing. It's kind of like a straight line for me.
I think the check mark points to a pretty deep pessimism.
Well,
not just about the future, but about your friends. I'm not very good. They're worse, and we're screwed. That's pretty much what they just said.
So I don't disagree with what you said, because if you actually looked at it from an emotional standpoint, you're going to say, oh, I saw that one coming. If you were in that group, you were in that, some of that group. I can see your face right now going like, yeah, it would be a check mark.
Hey, we're not here to talk about me.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I want to hear yours.
That's right.
I mean, after all, you saw what I saw somewhat.
Yeah.
And then you got to do some other things, and I think it's outstanding what you've been able to do.
Yeah. Let's talk about the intersection of innovation and creativity. The difference between an artist and an inventor. What is the overlap? How does it intersect? Is artistic mind an ingredient in innovation? Let's tease that apart.
Well, I did take art history, thanks to my now lovely wife, then the cute brown-eyed girl that said, hey, why don't you take an art history class? Fortunately or unfortunately, I took the one that the art history majors took, so I had to pump it up a little.
This wasn't art history for engineers.
No, this was the real art history.
My wife makes a joke. She took a physics class when she was in college. She was in business school. She took a physics class, and literally the title of the book was Physics for Poets. And she's like, how offensive is this? So you didn't get the book that said art history for engineers.
No, I didn't. I was sitting in this class with 150 kids. That's their future. So I'm going through the humanities part of this, and everybody picked the other ones. They picked regular history.
Right.
And there was a lot of files on those, and you could slide through if you figure about it. Somehow, because of that lovely lady, I took art history. Man, well, that was a game changer there for me, because I watched the entire history of art and architecture unfold. I remember thinking, I was like, wow, these guys made a finite jump there. Then they had to find this. And so that building that they built, they were using post and lintel. You haven't heard that word in a while.
Right.
Post and lintel, they had to do that originally. And then they put the Roman arch, and then they found out that you could do the flying buttress with the Gothic, the support. And you look at it and said, wow, those Roman engineers were pretty clever. They built the aqueducts in and stuff like that. And then they had to put the arches underneath there. And you're going like, huh. And then you come along and he'll flip back over and you go Picasso. And you're looking at his early works and you go like, wow, this guy's a great artist. I mean, the guy was really good. He could do anything. Anybody that, well, you want me to post impressions? You want me to do this? You want me to do that? Want to do this? Oh, I can make realism. I can do whatever you did. And it was like phenomenal. Then he went off on his own and did whatever. And so I saw the jump to creativity. You can call it creativity. In this case, it's probably innovation because he actually did it. He painted the picture and then stuff. And then we see it all the time in music too, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not speaking to anything here that everybody's going to go, duh.
Right.
Sure, absolutely. That's true. So I am on that page, been on that page. So I give them a lot of credit for encouraging me to say, when you're a part of this whole process, it's not just the thing you're doing, it's the people, the impact. You got to look at the whole and not just I created a device and that device made some money, but how did it make money? So they did have an impact on me, the art world.
Yeah. All of those categories, art and architecture and music, the industries are characterized by leaps and steps. Whether artists or architects have taken big leaps, and then there's an optimization that comes behind it. And the other part that you highlight, and I think it's a great example with the Roman aqueducts and the flying buttresses, the only ones that you and I are familiar with are the ones that survived.
That's right.
And so it's easy, again, in hindsight, to say, oh, the Roman arch, that's the thing. The flying buttress, that's the thing. It was a lot harder in situ to decide whether the Roman arch or the Corinthian triangle, I don't know, whatever.
I was going to say the Greek triangle didn't
Correct.
Make it. Didn't
the
make
Greek
it.
ellipse didn't go as well as we thought it would.
So think of all the people who tried so many different things
Correct.
along the way. That's really what we go through. Everybody's trying something. Anyway,
I think it's fair to call them innovative But I think that there is an aspect in which innovation, it does require a success on the back. So you can be an innovative person that doesn't necessarily hit innovation every single time.
Which goes back to my point, what is innovation?
Exactly.
Innovation is you have to have an impact, and I mean a good impact. The interesting thing here, the word innovation usually, and certainly in my lifetime, most of it is always the word good goes with it.
Correct.
Really, people, it always is sort of a positive thing, or you wouldn't see the marketing people putting it on the front of your companies or in my company. You would not see that because they all want to be, wow, we're innovative.
That's right.
75 years of innovation.
Yeah, just because you're 100 years old does not mean that you've had 100 years of innovation as a company.
So
sometimes the innovation was 100 years ago.
Last night, I saw on TV a crawl across the bottom. Kodak thinks it's going to have to go out of business. That's speaking to exactly what you just said.
The day that I started at Caterpillar was a $40 billion market cap company, and Kodak was a $40 billion market cap company. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Scary.
It is. To go back to the humor, as I think about, we're just going to jump. We're going to take a big jump there.
Humor.
That's right. You think about what humor is. It's an art. It's creative. It's rethinking words. It's retooling words. It's flipping words. It's using them in new ways. I think that humor also has an aspect where for some people it can cut through pretense. It can cut through an anxious moment. It has an ability to bring levity to a situation. Because when you're in a spirit of invention, there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of days where you're going home 2 steps farther from the goal than you were when you came into work that morning. And for a lot of people, having an opportunity to have a little levity, to have a little chuckle, it allows you to kind of survive the pain maybe that is happening while you're trying to take these shots, and a lot of them are rimming out.
You saw right through me. It's the whole trick of the whole deal, though it is part of my personality. But you're absolutely right. It's how do you make somebody feel at ease? I mean, if that guy can be laughing about things, then maybe I can be too.
Right.
And in that process, maybe that stupid idea I had, he just came up with a stupid idea. That's pretty funny.
It's safe for me to come up with a stupid idea.
Safe.
Yep.
So you create a safety net. And you know what? This is something that really surprised me, was it works with the executives also, the overlords. That was news to me. Let's put it that way. My attempts at humor, I'll use that because I'm sure my son would tell me, oh, it's that funny. My attempts at humor are not, I don't tell jokes.
Sure.
I use whatever is in front of me.
Yeah.
Other people do this, but it is disarming sometimes. Yes. Sometimes you can see people who are very shy and very reserved just relax. It's like, oh, this guy's just a regular guy.
Yeah.
And not something that I do just to do that. It's just me. But I found it to be a really valuable piece of the puzzle to be able to create a, dare I say, creative environment where people are not at all afraid. Because if he's laughing at his own junk,
correct,
I can laugh at I'll laugh at my stuff too. And pretty soon you've got communication going on.
How the humor gets used is very, very important. Who is the butt of the joke? Either the situation can be the butt of the joke.
Most of the time.
You, the teller of the joke. I do that. In a self-deprecating, humble way. Anytime that the other person is the butt of the joke, you've gone the wrong way. Humor is completely gone the wrong way.
Never pick on the other guy.
Right. It's funny, I use a couple stories here. As you get older, you look back to a few stories, and there's probably confirmation bias in this, but you look back to a few stories and you're like, man, I was 18, 19, and I did that. It's no wonder I became who I became, right? There's certain stories. For me, this is one of them. I was in sophomore design. They would just give the same design goal to 52 design teams. Take a CD and shoot it, compact disc for those that are not of my age.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's right. So it's a little disc.
Investment.
You're going to shoot it 20 feet into a box that's 2 feet wide, and you have to use this energy and then they just send 200 sophomore engineers to Lowe's to figure it out. That's basically how it boiled down. Well, we get to the end of the year and we have to do a design review.
Oh boy.
Everybody puts together their slides and everybody's working on it. In my mind, the thought process I had is the observer of my design review is going to be absolutely bored out of their head because they have watched 50 of the exact same designs being reviewed. And I think it would be enjoyable for them to have a degree of entertainment.
I love it.
While they are in their 50th design review of the exact same design. So I put in some sound effects. I put in some movie quotes. GIFs weren't invented, but I put in some pictures of movies and things like that. And I gave my design review and I was all in and energy and this and this. And the audience had what I think is a pretty good time. And Dr. Flanagan leans in and he says, Mr. McMenamy, you will never be able to do that in your career.
Oh, well,
this is not appropriate.
I do it all the time.
This is not how you're supposed to do this. And I just remember thinking like, oh, well, maybe I don't want to be an engineer then.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I joined a new company mid-career. I went to Precision Planting. I remember preparing my first design review. The executives were coming in from St. Louis, and I was going to give a design review on a given project that we were working on. And me being the new guy, they didn't want to let the new guy just present without being filtered first. And so I go into the conference room and I'm presenting to a few of the established engineers in the organization, and I'm given the slides and I'm clicking through them. And there's one slide in particular. There's just a lot of information on the slide. And so I took a picture of a professor with one of those really old 2-story chalkboards, where you'd slide the chalkboard up and you keep writing. And so the picture is calculus all over the chalkboard to illustrate. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. And the engineer, great engineer, innovative engineer, very, very innovative engineer, not the same sense of humor, not the same appreciation for humor that I had. He just says, why is that picture there? And I said, well, it's a complex situation. It's this. And, I want to convey that I don't get it. Delete the picture. Oh, okay. It's just to say, like, I have found and enjoy humor as a means of connecting people, as a means of breaking down barriers. We're going to talk more about one of the key components of innovation, I think, is the flow of information as rapidly as possible through an organization. And the way you do that is relationship. And one way to connect people is through levity and through humor. But it's not, I don't think it's a requirement of innovation. I think there's plenty of innovative people that don't have a sense of humor. But for me personally, and I know you, it has been a critical component of fostering and inviting innovation into the environments that we habitate.
Well said. I don't think I could improve upon it. As you're going through this, I'm imagining all the stupid things that I have done in this whole. For example, after getting exiled from my first job over to another business unit, I submitted my year review in a 3-act play. And it was well received by the boss. And back in 1992, there was a guy named Ivan Browning who predicted this earthquake. And so I set up a quakeometer next to my desk. I remember the overlords walking through, and the guy said, "Oh, wow, that's cute." Trying to keep the levity in this whole thing, because otherwise it's a dark day for me. I have to have something that keeps it bouncy.
Right.
Because otherwise it's not pretty. Let's just put it
That's
down.
right. I want to go a different direction with what can foster innovation, culture, organization. There's a couple analogies that I used over time as it pertains to innovation. And one of them is the trellis and the vine.
Is that an Aesop fable or something?
I don't know. It could be.
Trellis and the vine.
The trellis and the vine.
It sounds like a bar or something. The trellis and the vine.
So often, innovation is lumped in with other disciplines that organizations do. And there's this desire to set the process, set rigidity, set timelines, set goals. Here's our innovation recipe, plunk. Follow this recipe and innovation will happen. In particular, large organizations that are mostly doing optimization and mostly harvesting older industries, older business models, the way to grow a business once it's been established is through metrics-driven decisions and structure and rigidity and process. And so what I had to wrestle with is, if you're the person who's in charge with curating an innovative culture, most every executive above you just believes, what's the process, and execute the process. What's the timeline, and execute the timeline. I started to use the trellis and the vine analogy, which is to say the trellis and the vine have a symbiotic relationship. Both of them require the other one in order to thrive. And most engineers and most businessmen, if they were going to buy a trellis, would go to the trellis factory and they would look at the offerings of trellises and they would say, IBM has the XJ9006 trellis. They just came out with the 9007, and it's made out of stainless steel, and it has a F5 capability for a hurricane. It's the strongest, most rigid trellis on the face of the earth, and look how beautifully square it is, and look how beautifully structured it is. Let's plant that trellis, and we're going to grow our vine on this trellis. No one who is a farmer, no one who is a grower is going to pick the most rigid trellis out there. The purpose of the trellis is to hold the structure of the vine, but not choke the vine. So be strong enough to hold the vine, but not so strong that you choke the vine. A vine can't exist without the trellis holding it up. The purpose of the whole exercise is to produce fruit. It's not to have a beautiful trellis. In fact, the fruit is how we measure success, not a trellis that is perfectly structured. Oftentimes, at least in my world, the trellis is twisted a little bit. The trellis is angled off to the side a little bit. There might even be a 2x4 underneath holding up the trellis on a certain part, but it's the production of fruit. And so as I thought about an organization that was going to be creative, was going to be innovative, I thought about how much rigidity do we need? What does our prints releasing process need to look like? What does a validation plan need to look like? What does approval for budget need to look like? What does approval for reorganization need to look like? I had a trellis and vine mentality, which was we need enough structure to support the creativity, to support the lifeblood of this thing. But too much structure is going to choke this. Yeah, I can present to an executive a beautiful 3-year plan, a beautiful 3-year pipeline of we're going to launch this in 25 and we're going to generate this revenue and we're going to launch this and this and this. Anybody that's been part of innovation knows that that rarely happens. The plan you present to the executive is just to get you through the meeting. The world doesn't work like that. It's a lot more complex. When you're taking risks, it's a lot more complex. When I thought about how do I create an organization that is creative, I need enough structure to support its growth and to support its health, not more. Here's the hard part. A vine grows. Today, the answer is different than it was yesterday. And I wrestled with this across the decade as we went from 20 engineers to 175 engineers. The amount of trellis that we needed was different. I remember as I interviewed for Precision Planting, my first boss, the nephew of the founder, a guy by the name of Doug Souter, greatest respect for Doug. I remember in the interview, he said, Justin, you've worked at the large company. You've seen all the processes that they've used. You see all the rigidity that they have. You have observed which ones work and which ones don't, which ones help and which ones hurt. Your job is to introduce the ones that help and fight like heck to keep the ones out of here that hurt. That lit a fire inside of me. This is my goal. This is my mission. And what I would say is across the decade, that list evolved. There were absolutely processes that in the first year of me being at Precision Planting, I fought like heck to keep them out. But then you get to 100 people, you get to 150 people, you get to 200 people, and you say, it's time. We need to put a 2x4 under this thing. That vine is touching the ground. The fruit is now rotting. We're not getting done what we need to do. We need to have a little bit more rigidity and structure. What I've observed is most of the world is split between the XJ9001, most rigid trellis processes. That's the way you solve the world's problem. Or we're all free range. just let everybody move around and do what they're going to do. The hard part for me was having leadership that says your trellis is kind of bent up, and I can measure your trellis. I can't really measure your fruit very well, but I can measure your trellis. And then the free range guys are like, why are you killing me here? Why are you choking me in? And so it was a constant balancing act for me personally. What is the right amount of structure to support what we're doing, but not more structure? I think you can kill it just as easily with too much structure as you can kill it with not enough structure.
Fascinating. My answer is strange. I slithered through that other one that you were talking about.
Sure.
That can work. Obviously it did. I'm still processing the analogy there. I can see how that would be advantageous in an organization the size you're talking about.
Right. And you did not have that luxury.
I did not have that.
You did not have that luxury.
Never saw it. So I'm envious again. So now you're making me like, wow.
The trellis had been put in place.
That'd be fun. Heck with a trellis. I'm going to put something else in there. I like the vine thing.
But I think the reason that innovation, and we'll get into this later, one of the morbidities of innovation, one of the things that ends innovation or a culture of innovation is, one, it outgrows its trellis, and the team says, but we've always done it this way, and that's too much structure and that's too much rigidity, and the vine actually topples over underneath lack of process. I think that's one way. The more common way is that the innovative company gets bought and the trellis salesman shows up. And they say, this big $50 billion thing that bought you, we know better than you. We know more than you. I'm here to help you. And it looks like our release process, our software packages, our IT organization, our purchasing organization, our HR organization, our legal organization, and you actually choke the vine.
Yeah, the word synergy, they throw that at you. We'll be able to combine our IT departments, and next thing you know, our HR departments we didn't even have an HR department. Now we got an HR department. And I don't know if project management has slipped into your organization, but I've done battle with project management. It's something that I'm not against. Yeah, I have to understand. People are wondering, what's project management? They actually create, they call the project office, and they manage these projects so that on this date you're supposed to be here, and then we'll get it to manufacturing by here, and the project, they got to order the parts by here, and all this stuff. And they got it all laid out, and they go about and they interview these people of what they can do. Well, first of all, if you ask somebody, I got to take 6 months to do that. Might be able to do it in an afternoon. Okay, that's probably creeping into what you're talking about as it starts to get bigger. And to their point, something's got to manage this, or else you want to get it out the door. Where was the big criticism I have? I'd look at the project plan. They'd come and say, well, we have to have the machine out by this. And I'd look at it and I go, what's that spot right there? Oh, well, we have to develop that. I said, you don't know how to do this? Miracle goes here.
Miracle here.
And you got 2 more miracles go here. Why don't we find those out first? Then you can put the plan together, and I'm going to guarantee you that plan is going to be a lot shorter.
There's a listener of Grody and Unprofessional that you and I both worked with, but I won't name him. He'll know who we're talking about. We were in a meeting, and we had a very large technology pivot that needed to take place in a very, very short period of time. And the vice president is up there, and it's like, last night we decided that this wasn't going to work, and so we're going this direction, and we're going to do this and this. And he raises his hand in front of 200 people, and he says, have we identified the magic wand supplier yet? Silence across the entire room, but hilarity in the history books.
Oh, my goodness.
But that's right there in the Gantt chart. That's where we have miracle. Just miracle. 6 weeks, actually.
Not of that prescription. I never have been. Fix the problem. And not only that, the rest of them are lying to you how long it'll take. Once we find out how to do those 3 things, the rest of it will go.
Correct.
Fine. You would know that in a smaller organization. If you get past the bugaboo, boom.
It'll move.
You can move this thing fast.
Right.
So back to I have to admit, this probably doesn't fit, but when you talked about your lattice,
Trellis. Yep.
Trellis. Thank you. I'm sorry. It looks like a lattice to me.
Right.
My first thought was, oh, this is when somebody comes in and just torches it, the whole thing, and says, we burnt the boats, and we're going to go another direction. I want to raise my hand right now and say, I'm not really big on the burning the boats. And, of course, Six Sigma uses the burning platform. Mm-hmm. Like to avoid that too? I want to tell you that probably the most impactful innovation that we did was not done in that environment.
Right.
It was done entirely differently, but to their credit, it worked out for them. They burnt the boats and they got it, and their comment was, see, it worked. Probably 5 years taken off my life trying to figure this thing out.
What do we do with all these ashes from these burnt boats?
Oh my God.
We could have at least disassembled the boats and used the wood.
And how come you guys got out of the woods first? How you took the last boat out of there? Right. The rest of us don't have a boat.
That's right.
So I'm not a favor of burn the boats, and I did think of that when you said the lattice. And you were saying, well, I have a lattice organization at Vine, and they come in and go like, smoke that dude, and take boom,
blow it up.
Okay, now, smart boys, what are you going to do? I don't know.
We should have not burnt the boat.
Yeah.
By
the way, it had our lunch in it from Jimmy John's, and I was really hoping for that because we're going to have a brainstorming session afterward, and we were going to ask everybody what they thought we should do. We were going to have a good old time.
That's right.
And now what?
That's right.
You burnt the boats. Oh, boy.
Another thing that we focused on as we thought about a creative culture is the willingness in the creative space to disrupt yourself. What that means is, in the creative space, allow for the ability to come up with an idea that might actually make less revenue for the company, but be more beneficial to the customer. A lot of companies, especially big, established, market-leading companies, that is anathema. That is off limits. We have committed to the shareholder that we will grow and we will not grow with you walking around coming up with ideas that make less money. We took a strategy, we took an approach, and this was not just engineering, this was the entire company, which was the only person that is acceptable to disrupt you is you. It's a lot more painful when somebody else does it. And if I've thought of the idea, I'm certain 10 other people have already thought of the idea. What we saw, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, there were plenty of times that the right answer for the long term of the business, the right answer for the customer, was to come up with a product and come up with an idea that actually made our company less money per unit, but it benefited in other ways, some of them measurable, some of them immeasurable. What I've seen in other organizations is, you talked about Kodak before. Yeah, I could see how the customer would benefit from that, but we're not going to do that digital camera thing. We've got this honey wagon going on over here. We were pretty intentional, even to the individual engineer, make sure they knew disrupting ourselves to the benefit of the customer, that's a good thing. I felt like that opened up the universe of possibilities that people were willing to think in to solve the problem. That doesn't mean just because we had a disruptive idea, we have to go do it. But it was to say, I experienced in other environments where it's like, not only are you not allowed to say that, you can't think that. You'll get fired for saying stuff like that, because if people like you start saying stuff like that, we might not make as much money. To me, that was, again, to cut down on the creativity, which is the most precious asset and the most wasted asset. That was another component that I used in how do we maximize the creative juices that are flowing.
I never had the luxury of doing that to the specification that you're talking about. So the only thing that I can say is that there are a lot of people who talk about all the good ideas I had.
Sure.
I have a stack of ideas they didn't accept. I didn't say they're bad ideas.
Yeah.
I had a stack of ideas that they didn't do. I don't think any of them were subtractive. They all were intended to be additive.
The other thing that we were very focused on in creating a culture of innovation is a proximity to the customer and a proximity to the market. There's a lot of companies that have research groups. Bell Labs is a great example. There were components of Bell Labs that were extremely focused on the infrastructure, on creating switches and creating components that could live on the top of telephone poles for 50 years. There were other aspects of Bell Labs that they were shooting lasers off the moon in the 1930s and 1940s. In our experience, one of the things that we tried to foster was extreme proximity to the customer so that the ideas were always headed towards a market, headed towards a customer need. And we would actually stop projects once they didn't meet the technology, the customer, or the profitability need, versus a research organization that really is pursuing the advancement of knowledge with the expectation, in many senses, that someone in the future will pick up the knowledge and run it to the finish line. I'm not comparing and contrasting, calling one good, one bad. It's just, as I was orchestrating the culture in the organization, it was actually to push us closer to the pains and the realities of the customer rather than wrestle generically with a technology or a physics problem, as the case would be. I'm interested in your thoughts, not that I think that one is right or wrong, but just there's a lot of different ways to do innovation. That's how we had pushed the ball.
Personally, I think you're ace in the hole. My dad did that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way he was there. He could feel it. He was on the tractor. He could look back. Well, I'm wondering. I have time. Think about this thing, and the creative juices start to go. In this bigger organization, one thing that I appreciated after being exiled from my previous one where we created this software program was the fact that I made myself and made sure that we had a real customer.
Yeah.
The challenge that maybe you felt when you were in places in the bigger company were that you really didn't get a tactile feeling of what the customer wanted.
Correct.
You got an interpretation by somebody you're not really sure whether he knew what he was talking about. Oh, yeah. We need to paint it blue.
Yep.
That's a huge mistake. So I'm here patting you on the back.
Sure.
That you should. I don't know why more people don't do that. Now, you threw in this idea that they have this research department off to the side. This is some of their most talented people. They really hire really well, and I really like them. But it always seemed, and I make the point, that you should have an innovation group that does R&D, not an R&D group that does innovation. And they'll say that's just semantics. No, it's not. Because of what you just said, that if you had an innovation group that was focused on making a product go out the door as fast as they could, they would get themselves involved in the customer as quickly as they could. I am fairly lukewarm on R&D departments. I was never part of one. Apparently you were. I was not.
That's actually where the term grody and unprofessional comes from. I was in the R&D department.
People are shocked to this day that I was not in it. I avoided it. And in my glowing years, I was actually viewed as an alternative to the R&D. And by the way, I have the greatest respect for the people that worked there. They were really smart people. But what I saw during this whole thing was rather strange, to your point. What connection does that have to the customer that you're doing? You got more connection to the research scientists out there than you have to we're just finding this out. We're just looking at that. Everything should be focused on what am I going to do in the near term and in the long term that'll affect that customer. I want to keep your eye on the customer.
Correct.
And I want you to talk to the customer. I don't need you talking to the guy who talked 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 to the customer.
That's right.
Not going to work. You'll just spend a lot of money spinning your wheels. So congratulations. I think it's great that you're forcing that to the fact that everybody in your organization should be talking to the customer.
That's also an aspect of what environment are you in, what market are you in. Precision planting is serving a customer that is sitting at church with you. They're in the grocery store with you. You drive by them on the way to work. They are in your family line. That is one of the aspects of the agriculture industry, is that the customer is in society. When I was working in the mining industry, there's no mines within 500 miles of here. I've never met a mine operator.
Never been in a mine.
Never been in a mine. I think there's days of training you have to go in order to get into a mine. There's nuance of how much is practical, but the spirit of how do we get the proximity between the developer and the customer as narrow as possible. I
say amen at this point?
Sure.
I'm raising my hand. Amen, brother. When you were part of this training program that I had created to perhaps educate and indoctrinate some of the new people in perhaps the right ways of doing things. One of the things we did was got them to a customer. So on their very first months of the work, they were standing in front of the customer, and he's telling them what they look at it.
That's right.
And we're asking them, why do you have both brands? Why do you buy the other guys? Is this any better than what we have? What problems do you had? So before they've even really gotten going down the road, they've actually talked to a customer.
That's right.
That was all me. I was like, sure, man, you're going to listen to this.
I knew I would have a friendly audience with the get closer to the customer.
Oh, man.
One of the other things I want to talk about is your experience within a culture trying to foster innovation. You and I have talked about this before. I want to spend more time on it. Competition. How do you view competition? You can take it any direction you want to, but what is the role of competition within an innovative culture?
Well, this one is interesting. So I have this concept. It's called the all-rope team. All-rope team is basically if somebody heard in the world that you were hanging over a cliff by a rope and you needed help, who's going to come? They're going to drop whatever they do, and they're coming and try to save you. Each in their own words and each in their own way are going to apply their skills to save you because you developed that kind of relationship. Well, there's kind of an all-rope team when it comes to technology, too. When it's time to take on some of these big projects, it's quite amazing that when you find out that this is happening and these people came back out of the woodwork that knew how we approached it. By the way, simulation was used in this. And these people would come out of the woodwork and apply these skills that I've always admired, and we shortened up the work process. Was there a competition with the other way? The Edisonians were a little skeptical, but if you've already burnt the lettuce and the vine, then you have to do something. They would be willing to accept it. That's just a little hint at what's going on here. I happen to have written an entire chapter in my never-to-be-published book called Competitive Prototyping. And that entire chapter was rather lengthy. I just read it last night, by the way. I looked at it, and I was trying to think, do I still buy in that? It was 15 years ago. And at the time, I guess it was probably done because of what you keep talking about, the structure. How do you establish some sort of ability to look at two ideas?
Yeah.
Okay. The competitive prototyping thing comes out, and then there's a lot of people who would say, well, you're going to make people mad. There's going to be anger. And I go, well, that's where the management comes into this process.
It has to.
And I think you're probably resonating with this right now. In the organization the size of your newer company, I don't know whether you even need that. Maybe it's small enough. When you deal with something huge, you're going to have to say, I have a lot of talented people. I've already told you, we can find them. They're there. It's just, okay, we got them out there. Now we want to let them loose for a while and let them grow up their own. We'll put them a little bit apart. And we will let them look at the other guys too. And so that they actually get to see how progress is being made on this one or that one. And if you let them basically collaborate by looking and back and forth, eventually one will figure out which one's the better way of doing it.
Yeah.
So have we done that? Sort of. Yes. Did it work out okay? Yeah. Is it perfect? I think the management aspect of it and the timing and the challenge that you're under. If you make it part of a daily routine, your management skills will be different than if you're in they burnt the boats.
Right.
When you burn the boats,
you typically turn management into the competition.
Real quick. Anyway, I don't know if I answered the question, but I gave a hint at it that says, I wrote a whole chapter on competitive prototyping. There are people that says, oh, that's just a bake-off. I went, it's a bake-off if you make it a bake-off.
Right.
But if it's a managed situation, and if you're skilled at this, you might actually find that the one team suddenly goes over to the other team and finishes the project, and you've got the winning, and everybody feels like they are successful in this thing. So don't know if that scales down to a smaller organization or not, but I wrote a whole chapter on it.
You've said before that competition within an organization can tear a group apart or it can band people together.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's right.
I completely agree with that.
Management's responsibility to not tear it apart.
If management turns it into a bake-off with one winner and one loser and promotions are riding on the winner.
Ouch.
you're done for.
Yeah.
You're going to tear that group apart. And I've been caught on the bad side of a bake-off where managers were actually showing up at the other team's design reviews to launch Scud missiles into the project because they wanted their project to win. And we're in resource meetings where the person says, no, I'm not giving you a day on the test bench because my project is going to be the one to win. That is when management has failed categorically, when employees view themselves in direct competition with one another.
Yeah.
And there can only be one winner.
Yeah.
That's when it has completely spiraled out of control.
Oddly enough, I actually experienced this in another company. We were just working with them on a super secret project. We were at the Skunk Works, that kind of thing. And suddenly noticed that there was a division going on here. And I was like, I haven't experienced this. We didn't do a lot of that competitive prototype thing, but we did on this one, and we managed it well, got out the door, everybody, hey, we all win. We're all winners. Think, got lucked out on that one. But I watched it, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get into a world where they're poking eyes at each other and throwing bombs into each other's thing. But I saw it, and I was like, I don't want to do that.
I resonated with the term that is used by Simon Sinek. I think he uses it in the Infinite Game, and it's the term worthy rival.
Ooh.
He says that an organization needs to have a worthy rival. That's different than a competitor. That's different than an enemy. Think of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. These guys are worthy rivals with each other. We absolutely fostered competition within our organization. One of the things that we fostered was competition against the large OEMs. David and Goliath type of...
I kind of like that.
You position a worthy rival, which for us was John Deere. It was the large organizations in the industry.
Oh, dear.
And it was to say our goal was to be 3 years faster than them. If two engineers, one at John Deere and one at Precision Planting, had the exact same idea for the exact same concept in the exact same day, we want to be to market 3 years faster than they are. And you have to build an entire organization around that. You can't just say it. It has to look like how many 3D printers do we have and where are the parking spots and what desk structure. Like, you got to really get into the details of it. And this started with the founder, and we've continued it. The large established businesses in the industry are primarily concerned with their profitability and secondarily concerned with the customer's profitability. And we, on behalf of the American farmer, and this all sounds like motherhood and apple pie, but we, on behalf of the American farmer, are going to be faster and we're going to be better than the status quo in the marketplace. And so you turn the competition into a worthy rival as well as the status quo. It becomes the competitor. What we were very careful about doing was not turning people into competitors, but I was very direct and very focused that projects competed for people's time. That's a subtle sleight of hand there.
Yeah.
But it's to say, we had, say, 40 engineers. We were working on 10 projects at a time. We could look and we could say, okay, these 3 projects are doing great and they're going to be profitable and they're going to get to the market. These 2 or 3 projects, it's still kind of not sure. We're still maybe far out from picking a technology, but we're going to keep going because we have enough hope that it's going to make it there. We think we're going to find the keys on this issue. There's 2 or 3 projects that it's like, this one might be a ghost ship. I don't know if this one's going to make it back into harbor with anybody in there. If you're turning people against each other, the people on the winning team are like, I got to carry your carcass downfield because my project's the one making money. That's not going to get us anywhere. It's a horrible way to think. But what I wanted to do was have the person on the ghost ship willing, able, and excited to raise their hand and go, I think this is a ghost ship. I don't think this project is going to be successful.
Yeah.
You and I worked at a big company. I think I spent maybe about 6 of my 10 years on a ghost ship. We all knew we weren't making it into harbor, but this is where the charge number is. This is where the charge number is, so we're going to hang out here and got to keep the thing moving along. That's so wasteful. It's absolutely wasteful. What we absolutely did is we would sit down with a leader of a project or an engineer on a project that was struggling, and we would say, man, listen, you are a super talented dude. There is so much that you have the opportunity to do. Do you think we should continue working on the thing that you're working on? Or let me show you my other projects that we could have you work on today. And some of those were joining existing projects. Some of those were starting new projects. Obviously, again, you can't fall all the way into schizophrenia where you're changing projects every week. But what it allowed me to do is an engineer to be personally motivated to abandon a ghost ship and say, I think that the project over there wins against the project I'm working on, and I want to work on a winner, so I'm going to leave this project and go join this project. We would even use the language of Project A competes against Project B, which one wins? We never used the names of people. It was always the names of projects that competed with each other for the beautiful right to be worked on by our engineers.
Your words was just about what I said in terms of competitive prototyping. Wrote a whole chapter on it.
Yeah.
Same thing, but you have to do it well, and you showed how you were going to do that so that you didn't offend anybody in this particular
Correct.
thing. Now, one of our lieutenants that was a apostle of mine, he created something which actually worked. We had to check this shape of this device, and the shape of the device had a lot to do with what the outcome would become. So he created a contest, and everybody got to submit their shape, and there was going to be a T-shirt or something at the end of the whole thing. This is back to what would you do? So he took it to a new level and turned it into a game, and we got a tremendous amount of input on this particular thing, and then sorted through and essentially tried every one, and there's a lot of them, but some of them were identical. And at the end, one won. And it was more of a hey type thing. Wasn't a dang.
There weren't losers per se.
There were no losers.
Right.
The guys who didn't get us like, I thought that would work better than that.
Right.
Here's the number. Here's the number. Here's what we got.
That's right.
And it was well done. And I applauded him for doing that. And it speaks to the competitive prototyping, which you obviously guys have your own ways of doing that. So it was good. It worked out.
Awesome.
It did.
Jim, thanks so much for sitting down and talking about your experience and suffering through me sharing my experiences.
Oh, quit it. Stop it. You were doing terrific.
Oh, no, keep it coming.
Yeah,
keep it coming.
I'm envious. I want to do what you do.
There's so many more questions we're going to get to. We're going to continue this conversation as we move on. Thanks again so much, not just for your mentorship back in the day, but spending the time to come and dust off chapters that weren't written to share your experience.
A lot of them out there. I didn't realize I'd written all that. Yeah, there's still, you see them. They're piled right
There's
here.
a big pile.
There's a big pile of things that nobody really wants to hear. And the word simulation needs to be stuck on your door.
I'll tattoo it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Awesome. For those that wish to share praise, feedback, accolades, or large sums of money, please reach out to justin@grody.io. For those with complaints, concerns, frustrations, or accusations, or if you sympathize with Dr. Flanagan and consider me an infernal clackbox, feel free to send your note along with a self-addressed stamped envelope to Node 2, Deck 5, ISS, LEO 51.603. Be sure to use airmail. Thanks for your time. Let's do this again soon.